pleased to be here. I'm very grateful to Manuel for inviting me. I won't spend a lot of time on this, just to let you know, these are the three people leading it, myself, my colleague Alan Bucknell, and my colleague Sarah Duarte. The key thing is what we're trying to do is pull together across the university all the activities which are actually addressing the Sustainable Development Goals in the way that you are. So in various ways looking forward, if we can help you at any point, we are more than happy to do so, both directly in terms of what you're doing, but also in the ways in which you might be interacting with some of these other initiatives. So when one looks at what you're doing, there are of course at various points issues like food and infectious diseases often turn out to be a key issue driving what amounts to violence against children. But as you're thinking about this, particularly as you move to this stage of working with implementers, as you move to this stage, implementation becomes very hard. Because when you go on the sequence from the implementation, you get to policy, what you find is a tremendous difficulty around going from policy into practice. Issues of ensuring that the practices match the theory, match the research, match the policy. But importantly, how you go from the policy that you have to implementation on a small scale to implementation on a grand scale. And scaling up an implementation is extremely difficult. The other thing that I was very pleased to see is that you have a strong focus on early career researchers. I think one of the interesting things we discovered when we started this work is that actually one looks at the colleagues who are much younger than myself, those who are younger lecturers, those who are postdocs, even the postgraduate community, they have a great interest in the agenda you're pursuing, the agenda we're pursuing for Cambridge Global Challenges. So I think what we're seeing in various ways, this project captures it in the way it's structured, a real sea change in how people are operating in university and how younger colleagues are thinking about their careers. And to be frank, if you look around the world, it's not just here that we're seeing this, the younger colleagues who have this value set that's driving their research will be the, shall we say, the grey beards and the grey head folks of the future, grey head just like me. These two things are very important for us as well. There's this great tendency of people sitting in places like this to think that they have solutions. I work a lot with colleagues in technology, and there's this tremendous interest in being very helpful. But in being very helpful, you often find you create something that on the ground is seen as unnecessary, undesirable, or just unworkable. The other thing I say is this is a thing that often gets forgotten. It's been a key part of what we're doing. You probably won't know what Pasteur's quadrant is. There's this great tendency to think of the ways in which you do research as making discovery and simply leading to application. There's this, if you like, simple dimension which goes between blue skies research and application. If you look at that, what we're really talking about is a 2x2 table. There's research that's done for considerations of theory and research which is done for considerations of practice. Pasteur's quadrant is the one that actually fits into that quarter, that particular cell where you're doing work that's for theory and work that's for practice. And what I'm seeing in what you're doing is something which really fits in this cell. It's called Pasteur's quadrant by somebody called Donald Stokes, who studied a lot about post-war scientific policy, research policy overall. And his point was that, look at Louis Pasteur. He did great work on the French wine industry from which we all benefit, stop the problems of spoilage, but he also made major contributions to microbiology. And to think that research on matters that matter and research on theory are somehow divorced just misses the point. Most of our disciplines actually grew out of the combination of the two. And I see what you're doing is making a fundamental contribution to both practice and understanding, which is terrific. There's lots more that could be said about this, and I'm happy to talk to colleagues over the course of the day about these matters. But the thing that strikes me that we can help you with as you develop what you're doing is actually think about the further connections you might be wanting to make. Violence obviously sits in a bigger picture. It sits in a bigger picture of how the child's life proceeds, what other people are doing. If you ignore those bigger pictures, I've just come back from a trip to Lahore, for example, and working there with colleagues. If you look at violence towards children, it sits in a whole economic milieu, sits in a whole set of cultural and family practices. Now the work you're doing is very attentive to that in the way you've got the multinational setup. But as one delivers on that, having an understanding of those broader factors becomes very important. We're very keen to understand how you support early career research as well. We think we might get a lot from you on that, but we'd also be looking to help you if you're looking at issues around that matter. I already mentioned this, and if you look back on the history of funding this area, there was a report recently by the British government on the Newton Fund. The Newton Fund was designed to address issues in the way that you're addressing them. And in evaluation of the impact that was delivered, as you go through the report on the Newton Fund, if green is for success, amber is maybe, and red is no, it's mostly red with some amber. This bit is actually extremely difficult. So as you develop your work, and now you're at an early stage, we would be delighted to actually help you think through those issues and actually act with partners who can take you to policy, then to practice. Final thing I wanted to say was I was so pleased to see this because, as a personal note, I'm not a developmental psychologist, but I have a great interest in the role of extreme values leading to violence. That's why I was in Lahore. We have a very interesting project running there. If one looks at those who become the extremely violent extremists, they're ones who've had an awful experience earlier on. So if one thinks about what you're talking about leading through to other matters, if you think about young children who become, as my colleague there, become suicide bombers sewn into a nice little jacket, these are children who have suffered tremendously already at that point. So this is highly significant what you're doing for other matters too. And of course, most of you know that last Wednesday was the 30th anniversary of the UN Declaration on the Rights of the Child. Back in the early 90s, that's why I'm pleased to see the Centre for Family Research involved, I worked with a colleague, Judith Enu, who sadly died about 6 years ago, on how we think about what indicates whether or not a child's rights are being observed, being actually upheld. And just thinking back to then, I helped to organise a series of workshops around working out. But if I think about what she was doing then and what you're doing now, the connection is really rather striking. So anyway, thank you for inviting me, Manuel, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the day.
Fantastic, thank you very much.